Autumn in Chicago was the most beautiful season of the year for Rachel Thompson. Watching the colorful leaves dance and fall filled her with the same pure joy she had felt as a child. The cityscape visible from the windows of St. Mary's General Hospital, where she worked, was wrapped in warm colors during this time of year. Rachel had built a 12-year career as a nurse and was trusted by her colleagues as a night shift expert. She found deep fulfillment in watching over patients' peaceful sleep in the quiet nighttime hospital. When she returned home, her 5-year-old son Ethan's innocent smile would be waiting for her. Her husband Michael was also a kind and understanding partner. Michael worked as a systems engineer at a mid-sized IT company in the city. Tall and gentle in nature, he was a man who cherished his family above all else. Whenever Rachel worked the night shift, he would always take care of Ethan. They had been married for 8 years, and his thoughtfulness still warmed her heart. What strengthened this family bond even further was Rachel's sister Emily. Emily worked as a freelance graphic designer. In contrast to her sister, she had a lively and sociable personality that always brought bright laughter to the family. Her relationship with Ethan was especially special. She treated him with the loving care of a real mother. Last month's 5th birthday party for Ethan was also planned primarily by Emily. The living room was filled with colorful balloons, handmade decorations, and games that delighted the children. It was a wonderful party that showcased Emily's creativity and sense of style. Ethan smiled throughout, hugging his Aunt Emily repeatedly and saying, "Thank you." At the end of summer, the 4 of them went to a lakeside campground. While Michael struggled with unfamiliar hands to set up the tent, Emily played stone skipping on the lake with Ethan. Rachel watched this scene from the shade of a tree, wondering if there could be a happier moment than this. During the barbecue dinner, they all enjoyed Michael's hamburgers while sitting around the campfire and talking. Ethan fell asleep from exhaustion, and Emily gently covered him with a blanket. Emily's presence was irreplaceable for Rachel. For the sisters who had lost their parents early, they were each other's only blood relatives. Thanks to Emily being there, Rachel could focus on her night shifts with peace of mind. Especially during busy periods or when emergency surgeries came up, even when her shifts ran longer than scheduled, Emily would gladly cooperate. Ethan also truly adored Emily. Sometimes he looked forward to spending time with Emily even more than with his mother Rachel. Emily was skilled with children and understood Ethan's curious nature, always providing new discoveries and experiences. She would take him to art museums, catch insects in the park, or cook together. Even when Rachel came home tired from work, seeing Ethan's satisfied face filled her with gratitude toward Emily. Michael also cherished Emily like a real sister. He would give her work advice, fix her computer problems, and sometimes advise her on her design work. When Emily landed a new project, the whole family would celebrate. Such warm relationships made this family's bond even deeper. Every morning, on her way home from the hospital, Rachel couldn't help but wish this happiness would last forever. Looking down at the Chicago streets, she realized how precious and beautiful her days with her husband, son, and sister were. It might not be perfect, but there was a loving family there. One day, Rachel was checking her night shift schedule while drinking coffee. The internal medicine ward at St. Mary's General Hospital had seen an increase in patients with respiratory ailments, as it was the change of seasons. For someone with her experience, night shifts during such periods required especially careful attention. Across the kitchen table, Ethan was drawing with colored pencils. He had recently become obsessed with drawing dinosaurs, and today a creature resembling a Tyrannosaurus was vividly drawn on the paper. Watching her son concentrate with focus beyond his 5 years, carefully coloring even the smallest details, naturally put Rachel's mind at ease. "Mommy, look. This time I made the teeth even scarier." Ethan proudly held up his drawing. Indeed, it was more powerful than the dinosaur he had drawn before. Rachel gently stroked her son's head, moved by his growth. "That's wonderful, Ethan. I think Aunt Emily will be surprised when she sees it." "Really? Is Aunt Emily coming today too?" Ethan's eyes sparkled with anticipation. Rachel nodded with a smile. Emily had been quite busy lately with requests from new clients, but she still offered to take care of Ethan on her sister's night shift days. "Yes, she should be here around 6 o'clock. I'm sure she'll praise your new dinosaur drawing. Just then, they heard the sound of the front door opening. Michael seemed to have returned from work. It was an earlier return than usual. Ethan ran out with his drawing and jumped on his father. Daddy, welcome home. Look at my dinosaur drawing. Michael lifted his son while still in his suit and examined the drawing carefully. His expression held gentleness that made him forget his fatigue. Wow, this is a magnificent Tyrannosaurus. It wouldn't be strange if it were displayed in a museum. Ethan's cheeks flushed with joy. Michael came over to Rachel and gave her a light kiss. I finished early today. The new project reached a milestone. Welcome home. Dinner will be ready soon. Thank you. Emily's coming today too, right? Yes, around 6 o'clock. I really feel bad about how much she's been helping us lately. Michael shook his head. We're family, so you don't need to say things like that. Emily seems to enjoy spending time with Ethan too. That was certainly true. Emily loved children and seemed to genuinely enjoy her time with Ethan. Using the imagination she had cultivated through her creative work, she always thought of new games and activities. When Rachel returned from work, she would sometimes find craft projects and drawings they had made together displayed throughout the house. While preparing dinner, Rachel thought about tonight's night shift. She organized the patient list in her head and recalled the patients who needed special attention. Professional responsibility was sometimes a great stress for Rachel, but it was also a deep source of fulfillment. Watching over patients' recovery and providing peace of mind to their families was her mission as a nurse. And she could fulfill this mission only because of her family's understanding and support. At exactly 6 o'clock, Emily arrived. With her usual bright smile, Ethan ran to her as soon as he saw her. Aunt Emily, I drew a dinosaur. Oh my, another new masterpiece. What kind of dinosaur is it? Emily was carrying a large tote bag on her shoulder. It probably contained materials and books to enjoy with Ethan tonight. She always paid careful attention to ensure the child wouldn't get bored. What shall we play today? Emily asked Ethan. Puzzles. I have a new puzzle. It has 1,000 pieces. 1,000 pieces? That's quite a challenge. But if we work together, we can complete it. Rachel watched their interaction and felt gratitude toward Emily once again. Her sister was naturally becoming a good friend to Ethan. With an approachability that didn't make their age difference felt, she understood the child's heart. Emily, thank you so much. You've been busy lately, but you always take this on. What are you saying? Time with Ethan is fun for me too. Besides, it's a good break from work. Emily laughed lightly. Her freelance work was going well, and she had recently been entrusted with particularly large projects. Still, Rachel was truly grateful that she made time for the family. What time will you be back tonight? Emily asked. As usual, I should be able to come home around 7 in the morning. But if there's an emergency, I might be a little late. That's fine. I have a meeting from the afternoon tomorrow, so I can take it easy in the morning. Michael poked his head out from the living room. Emily, thank you so much always. This weekend, let's all go to a nice restaurant. How about that Italian place you like? That sounds lovely. But you don't need to be so considerate. We're family. No, we need to express our gratitude. Hearing such conversations, Rachel realized how blessed she was. Her husband was thoughtful, her sister was devoted, and her son was healthy and full of curiosity. It might not be a perfect family relationship, but feelings of caring for each other were firmly rooted. After finishing her night shift preparations, it was time for Rachel to head to the hospital. Ethan had already started working on the puzzle with Emily, and they were having a pleasant conversation together. Well then, I'm off. Rachel kissed her son's cheek. Ethan turned around and waved energetically as usual. Mommy, do your best at work. Thank you. Be a good boy. Emily also smiled as she saw her off. Take care. I know tonight will be difficult, but don't worry about home. Thank you so much. Well then, I'm counting on you. Michael saw her off to the front door. He placed his hand on his wife's shoulder and spoke gently. Come home safely tonight. We'll be waiting here for you. Yes, I'll definitely come home. Rachel got in her car and started the engine. Looking at the house lights reflected in the rearview mirror, she was enveloped in deep peace of mind. This warm family bond would give her the strength to overcome any difficult night shift. Driving through Chicago's nighttime streets, Rachel organized tonight's schedule in her head. As usual, she would start with checking patients' conditions, then manage medications, make regular rounds, and spend the long hours until morning with responsibility. Coordination with fellow nurses was also important. When she arrived at the hospital, she received a detailed handover from the day shift staff. Tonight seemed to be relatively stable, but she couldn't let her guard down. Rachel changed into her uniform with practiced hands and prepared for the start of the night shift. The clock hands pointed to 8 o'clock in the evening. At home now, Emily and Ethan were probably absorbed in their puzzle. Picturing that peaceful scene, Rachel began her mission to protect the patient's safety tonight. For her, this was nothing special, just the beginning of an ordinary night shift. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, Rachel continued her nighttime rounds of patients, walking down the hallway with familiar steps. When she finished her rounds and returned to the nurse's station, her colleague Sarah Williams was organizing patient charts. Sarah was a reliable colleague for Rachel. They had worked night shifts together for many years and knew each other's movements well. It's quiet tonight, Sarah turned around and smiled. These kinds of nights make me nervous instead. They say it's the calm before the storm, don't they? That's true. But it's good that the patients can sleep peacefully. Rachel answered while picking up her coffee cup. The warm aroma of coffee soothed her fatigue. At home now, Emily and Ethan were probably sleeping peacefully. Ethan was surely showing a happy sleeping face while hugging his dinosaur stuffed animal. At that moment, the internal phone from the emergency center rang. Sarah picked up the receiver. Yes, this is the internal medicine ward. Yes, I understand. We'll prepare immediately. Sarah's expression suddenly became serious. Rachel had a bad feeling. 3 emergency transports from traffic accidents. Expected arrival in 10 minutes. 2 are critical, 1 is minor injuries. Understood. I'll check the treatment room. As Rachel was about to stand up, Sarah continued. They're sending the emergency transport list by fax, so check the patient information. A sheet was ejected from the old fax machine, and Rachel casually picked up the paper. It listed the names, ages, and injury conditions of the patients being transported. She began mechanically looking through it as usual, when her hands began to tremble. The name listed on the second line, Ethan Thompson, 5 years old, male. Rachel couldn't believe her eyes. There must be another child with the same name. It was a common name, so it was surely a coincidence. However, when she saw the name that followed, her heart began to beat violently. Emily Harton, 32 years old, female. Rachel's mind went completely blank. Could this be real? She hoped it was a bad dream. Sarah rushed over and peered at the list. Isn't this your son's and sister's names? What does this mean? Why are Ethan and Emily? Various questions swirled in Rachel's head. Why was Ethan outside at 2 in the morning? Emily was supposed to be at home with Ethan. She hoped it was some kind of mistake. Calm down, Rachel. Let's check the details immediately. Sarah called the emergency center. Rachel sat down in her chair and continued staring at the list with trembling hands. Ethan's injury condition was listed as head trauma, unconscious. Emily was listed as a minor trauma, conscious and alert. I found out the details of the accident, Sarah said, turning around after hanging up the phone. Around 1:40 a.m., there was a collision between cars at an intersection downtown. It's a complex accident involving 3 vehicles. But why is Ethan? Emily was supposed to be taking care of my son at home. Maybe they were on their way to the hospital for an emergency. Or perhaps... Sarah's words trailed off. The sound of ambulance sirens was approaching. Rachel stood up and tried to head to the treatment room. However, her legs were shaking and she couldn't move forward. Rachel, you're family, so you can't be directly involved in treatment. It's the rules. But he's my son. I have to help Ethan. I understand. But stay calm. Other doctors and nurses will do their best. The ambulance arrived, and hurried footsteps echoed through the hospital. Rachel stared out the window. She could see a small body being carried on a stretcher. It was Ethan. Her son was unconscious and wearing an oxygen mask. Seeing this, Rachel's knees nearly gave out. Behind him, another stretcher was being brought in. It was Emily. She was conscious and looked up toward Rachel. At that moment, their eyes met. Emily's expression seemed to hold not just pain, but some complex emotion. Rachel began walking toward the treatment room. No matter what rules there were, she had to be by her son's side. However, halfway down the hallway, she was stopped by a colleague doctor, Dr. James Reed. Rachel, you cannot go in. Dr. Reed, please. He's my son. It's Ethan. I know. That's exactly why you absolutely cannot go in. Dr. Reed's expression was unusually serious. It was a stern tone unimaginable from his usual gentle demeanor. What do you mean? Is my son all right? He's still being examined. However, there's something you need to know. Dr. Reed looked around and lowered his voice. The circumstances of the accident are suspicious. The police are conducting a detailed investigation. And, your husband Michael was also at the scene. Rachel was speechless. Michael was at the scene? What did that mean? Michael? But he should be sleeping at home. Ethan was supposed to be with Emily. According to the police, Michael was found at the accident scene. His car was also there. The police will explain the details. Various possibilities raced through Rachel's mind. Why was Michael outside in the middle of the night? Why were Emily and Ethan out together? And why were all three of them in the same place? The police will be here soon, so wait until then. Pretend you don't know anything. Pretend I don't know anything? What do you mean? Rachel, this may not be a simple traffic accident. For your safety too, don't take any action until the police arrive. Dr. Reed's warning confused Rachel even more. She sat down in a hallway chair and held her head. Unbelievable events were happening one after another, and she felt like she was losing her sense of reality. Voices of doctors and nurses could be heard from the treatment room. Voices checking Ethan's condition, sounds of medical equipment, and occasionally heard emergency instructions. Rachel continued praying for her son's safety with a prayerful heart. 30 minutes later, 2 police officers arrived. They approached Rachel, confirmed her identity, and then requested questioning in a separate room. As Rachel stood up, she looked back toward the treatment room. She wanted to know what was happening with Ethan as soon as possible. How is my son's condition? The doctor will explain later. First, we have some questions we'd like to ask you. The police officer's expressions were stern, and it didn't feel like a simple traffic accident response. Rachel followed the officers to another room amid anxiety and confusion. Walking down the hallway, she turned back to look at the treatment room. There, desperate treatment was continuing to save her beloved son's life. And Rachel didn't yet know that by dawn, truths would be revealed that would completely overturn her life. That the family bonds she had believed in were actually fragile and dangerous. The police officer opened the door and urged Rachel to go inside. The small interview room contained only a table and chairs. Under the cold fluorescent lights of the interview room, Rachel faced 2 police officers. The older detective, David Miller, began speaking in a calm tone. The young detective sitting next to him, Jennifer Smith, opened her notebook and prepared. Mrs. Thompson, first let me say that your son's condition is stable. He has head trauma, but his life is not in danger. Rachel breathed a sigh of relief. However, that sense of security was short-lived. However, there are several puzzling aspects about tonight's accident. We need your cooperation. I'll tell you anything. But I was at the hospital and don't know anything. Detective Miller continued, carefully choosing his words. Around 1:40 a.m., a multiple collision accident occurred at the intersection of 5th Street and Oak Street downtown. 3 vehicles were involved. Your son and sister were in one of those vehicles. That would be Emily's car. But why did she take Ethan out in the middle of the night? Actually, the car Emily was driving was owned by your husband. Rachel was confused. Michael's car? Why was Emily driving Michael's car? And the person driving another vehicle was Michael himself. With these words, Rachel's mind went completely blank. Michael and Emily in separate cars? Why? For what purpose? Let me ask you, did you notice anything about the relationship between your husband and sister? Detective Smith's question made Rachel shake her head. However, deep in her heart, small doubts began to sprout. Emily's recent behavior, the increasing number of days Michael came home late, the glances they sometimes exchanged. From the situation at the scene, it appears Michael was chasing Emily's car. There are traces of him pursuing at high speed. Chasing? Why? Detective Miller sighed heavily. As a result of examining Emily's cell phone, we discovered that she had an intimate relationship with Michael. Based on the message history, this relationship appears to have continued for at least 8 months. Rachel was speechless. 8 months ago. That coincided with when Emily had started coming to the house more frequently. When she had begun offering to take care of Ethan. Furthermore, we discovered that Emily is pregnant. Estimated at 6 months. This fact was the greatest shock for Rachel. Her sister was pregnant? And the father was Michael. An unbelievable reality was being thrust before her. From the content of the messages, it appears Emily was pressuring Michael to divorce and be with her. However, Michael was refusing this. Detective Smith continued. Looking at tonight's final message, Emily sent, "I'm taking Ethan. If you won't make a decision, I'll make one." Michael replied, "Don't touch my son." Rachel's body began to tremble. Emily was trying to take Ethan away? Why? We believe Emily intended to use Ethan as a hostage to change Michael's feelings if he wouldn't choose her. She took your son from the house and was trying to go somewhere. So Michael chased after them? Yes. According to Michael's testimony, he woke up in the middle of the night and checked Ethan's room to find his son missing. Emily was also nowhere to be found, so he frantically searched for them by car. Detective Miller continued. From GPS records, we know Emily was heading toward the state border. She was probably planning to flee to another state. Michael desperately chased after them, calling repeatedly. How did the accident happen? When Emily ran a red light and entered the intersection, she collided with an oncoming vehicle. Michael hit the brakes hard but couldn't stop in time and rear-ended them. A third car was also involved, but that driver only suffered minor injuries. Rachel leaned back in her chair. Unbelievable truths were being revealed one after another. Her beloved husband was having an affair with her sister, and that sister had tried to kidnap her son. And as a result, tonight's accident had occurred. Emily is currently receiving medical examination, but her physical injuries are minor. However, she is in a mentally unstable state. Anxiety about pregnancy, the complexity of the relationship, and regret about this incident seem to be weighing on her. What about Michael? Where is my husband now? He's being questioned in another room. He deeply regrets everything and says it's all his responsibility. Not being able to end the affair, not understanding Emily's emotions, and putting your son in danger. Detective Smith closed her notebook and said, "Mrs. Thompson, you bear no responsibility for any of this. However, we need to explain the legal procedures going forward." Legal procedures? Emily may be charged with suspected kidnapping of a minor. She will also be held responsible for the accident due to reckless driving. Michael will also continue to be investigated regarding the affair and tonight's pursuit. Rachel held her head. The entire family had collapsed. She had been betrayed by the sister she trusted, and her husband had also been having an affair. And most importantly, her precious son had been put in danger. Please let me see my son. Of course. As soon as the doctor gives permission, you can visit immediately. Detective Miller stood up and added in a gentle tone. Mrs. Thompson, this will be a difficult time ahead, but please stay strong for your son's sake. You are the only person he can trust. When she left the interview room, Rachel ran into Michael in the hallway. Her husband's face was distorted with fatigue and regret. They stared at each other silently. Rachel, Don't say anything right now. Rachel walked past her husband. The trust and love built over 8 years of marriage had crumbled in a single night. Right now, she only had the capacity to think about Ethan. On her way to the treatment room, Rachel looked out the window. Chicago's dawn was approaching. It was the beginning of a new day. However, for her, this was a moment when the end of her life and a new beginning arrived simultaneously. 6 months later, Rachel was preparing breakfast in the kitchen of her new apartment. Chicago's spring sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating Ethan's drawing on the table. This time it wasn't a dinosaur, but a picture of a mother and son walking hand in hand. Mommy, are the pancakes ready? Ethan came out of the bedroom, rubbing his sleepy eyes and asking. There were almost no after effects from the accident, and he had shown a recovery that surprised even his doctor. However, the emotional wounds needed time to heal. Almost ready. Did you brush your teeth? Yes. I get to see Dr. Sarah today, right? Ethan smiled happily. Sarah Williams had been a colleague at the hospital, but was now a close friend with whom they had a family-like relationship. During the divorce proceedings, Sarah and her family had supported Rachel and Ethan. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago. Michael had agreed to pay alimony and child support, and visitation rights were granted with restrictions. He deeply regretted his actions and was receiving counseling while facing himself. Visits with Ethan occurred once a month under Rachel's supervision. Regarding Emily, she had received a guilty verdict for attempted kidnapping of a minor and reckless driving. Although it was a suspended sentence, she was prohibited from approaching Rachel and Ethan. Emily gave birth to the child and then moved to another state. Whether that child was Michael's, Rachel chose not to know. She had chosen to move forward without being trapped by the past. Mommy, today I'm going to the park with Dr. Sarah's son Jason, right? Yes, the weather is nice, so let's all have a picnic. Rachel answered while plating the pancakes. Sarah's son Jason was 7 years old and had become like a big brother to Ethan. The two often spent weekends together. Jason said he got a new soccer ball. That sounds fun. But first, let's eat breakfast properly. While eating breakfast, Rachel realized her son's growth. After the accident, Ethan had become temporarily emotionally unstable, but with the help of a professional counselor, he gradually recovered. Now she felt that his bond with his mother had become deeper than before. Rachel had also returned to work. For a while, she had switched to day shifts to treasure her time with Ethan. All her colleagues understood her situation and warmly supported her. Especially Sarah, who stayed by her side like a real sister. Mommy, what does blood relation mean? Ethan's sudden question made Rachel stop what she was doing. Why are you suddenly asking about that? A friend at school said that family is important because they're connected by blood. But Aunt Emily was connected to us by blood, but she did bad things, didn't she? Rachel carefully chose her words. Over the past 6 months, she had thought many times about how to explain this to Ethan. Blood relation means being born as family. But what's really important is loving each other and protecting each other. Dr. Sarah and Jason aren't connected to us by blood, but they care about us, right? That's exactly right. Family isn't determined only by blood relations. People who care about each other and help each other when in trouble are real family. Ethan nodded with a serious expression. So Dr. Sarah is our family too? Of course. And don't forget that there are many people who love you. In the afternoon, the four of them enjoyed a picnic in the park. While Sarah and Rachel talked on the sheet, Ethan and Jason played soccer on the grass. How are you doing? Sarah asked gently. I feel like I'm gradually moving forward. Ethan has made friends at school and has become brighter. You've become much stronger too. I was worried at first. Rachel smiled. Indeed, she seemed like a different person from 6 months ago. There had been times when she was devastated by family betrayal, but now she had found hope in her new life. Sarah, I'm so glad you were there. You're much more like family than my blood-related sister was. We'll always be family from now on. As chosen family. When the sunset colored the park, the four of them headed home hand in hand. Rachel held Ethan's small hand while thinking about the meaning of real family. More important than blood relations were mutual love and trust. What they had lost was great, but what they had gained was of even greater value. In their new family form, Rachel and Ethan's lives were beginning to shine again.